Also,
All right. Would you all please rise and join me for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everybody. Tonight is May 13th, 2019. This is the regularly scheduled town council meeting. All members of council are present, as is our first selectman. Are there any objections to the consent calendar or comments? Seeing none, I will pass the consent calendar as printed. We have communications A through K, and I ask that they be included in the minutes of the meeting verbatim, please, Madam Clerk. On to public participation. Would anybody like to participate in public participation at this time? Okay. Seeing none, I'll close public participation. We have no appointments this evening, and I'm just going to use chairman's discretion to skip ahead before we get into the super exciting action items. We're going to skip ahead to new business item E, which is the donation of a portrait of Marie Perkins, letterer. Is there a motion, Ms. LaPels?
I'll make a motion to accept the portrait of Marie Perkins, letterer.
Motion by Ms. LaPels. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. For discussion, as we typically do, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Kellogg for the introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for taking this item out of order for the convenience of some special guests we have here tonight. I'm really honored and privileged to be able to introduce a couple folks here tonight. As you all know, Marie Perkins, letterer, was a longtime resident of our community. She was a leader in our community. She was the past Director of Social Services for 27 years, one of the original trustees of the Edith Wheeler Memorial Trust. There's a room dedicated in her honor in the library. After her passing in November of 2018, a local painter, William Lee, has offered to donate the town a portrait that he made of Mrs. Letterer. So here tonight we have her family as well as our honored guest, former First Selectman Karen Bernaska, and our former Town Council Clerk Kay Inderhonen. And I, with your permission, would like to turn the floor over to Mrs. Bernaska and Mrs. Inderhonen for some comments and presentation.
Very well. Thank you very much. Welcome.
Thank you. We're so pleased to be here tonight, Kay Inderhonen and I. We're here for really for two reasons why we're happy. One is to present. Are you okay? Yes. To present to the town of Monroe an oil painting of Marie Perkins, letterer, and also we're extremely grateful to the First Selectman and to the Council for allowing us to be here. Yes, we would like you to know that William Lee, who is the artist, is of wide renown. He is a veteran of World War II and a community activist, as was Marie. He is now serving as the Historian Emeritus of the town of Fairfield. He volunteered to create this informal, personal portrait due to his decades-long friendship with Marie. Kay and I are only two of a multitude of friends that Marie had, and we'd like you to know just a little bit about her. Marie and Bob Letterer, we found out tonight, moved here 70 years ago, around 1947. Marie was Monroe's only social worker for nearly 30 years. She agreed to take the position only after the town agreed to change the title from welfare worker because she felt that the title was demeaning to the people that she was serving. Marie had no office. She often worked at her kitchen table or drove around town in her woody station wagon to meet with clients. Marie was a friend of Edith Wheeler. You okay? Yeah. Marie was a friend of Edith Wheeler. And as a result of Miss Wheeler's respect for Marie, she appointed Marie trustee to the Wheeler Trust, which even today provides substantial scholarships to Massett graduates. Marie was the ultimate volunteer. Over the years, she helped with the Stepney Volunteer Fire Department, and her husband always marched in the Memorial Day Parade with their Dalmatians. She and her husband for decades were volunteers for the Red Cross, and in 2000 were named Volunteers of the Year in the state of Connecticut by the Red Cross. Her efforts were also recognized by many civic groups. She was Monroe Citizen of the Year, Republican of the Year, Republican Woman of the Year. She was a director of the YWCA. She was named a life member of the Girl Scouts. She was a judge at 4-H competitions. She was honored by the Monroe Women's Club as Mother of the Year, and she has served with the Historical Society and Save Our Stepney. Marie made many contributions to Monroe projects, including the new library when it was built, and in recognition of her devotion, the children's room, as Ken mentioned, the children's room in the library is named for her. Marie was special, she was fun, she was loving, and she made it easy to be loved. She held traditional values. She was wise, witty, compassionate. She was a devoted mother, sister, aunt, and friend. She was generous of her time and of her resources and of her advice. She was a role model and is sorely missed by all who knew her. And once again, Kay and I would like to thank Ken and the members of the council, and we would especially like to thank the members of her family for sharing Marie with us. She was truly a wonderful and a remarkable woman. And thank you very much.
Would you like to say a few words? The floor is yours if you want to.
He's a Perkins.
You're welcome. So, is there any further discussion? I can't imagine what discussion we can have other than it's just a
I would just
wonderful
echo-
presentation.
I would just echo everything Mrs. Bernaska said, because I probably knew out of all of us here, I knew Marie very well. I remember the dogs in the parade constantly, and she was just a wonderful person. Everything Karen said was correct. Not that I have to say.
Mr. Mauer?
And on top of that, I would also like to add that sometimes there's certain joys of being a member of this council, and I think this is one of them. We get to accept monetary donations every now and again, but it's very rare that we get to accept a donation that not only shows the service to Monroe, but also the history of Monroe. So just a heartfelt thank you to you for such a wonderful presentation, to your family and to Marie and to the artist for the donation. It's truly an honor to be able to accept that on behalf of the town.
Well said. Anybody else? Certainly humbling as a member of council to hear about just wonderful service to the community, and really does put it in perspective. So thank you for that. Thank you for a wonderful presentation.
Oh, she loved his town.
Seeing no further discussion, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of accepting the donation? And against, the motion carries 9-0. Thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, back to action items. A is the Town Council Committee on Finance, Education, Health, and Public Safety. Mr. Rooney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have not met.
B is planning
Before
and
we
zoning.
move on, Mr.
Sure,
Chairman.
Mr. Mauer.
While we have not met, just one quick update from Commission on Aging to continue off of the update I gave at our last meeting. There was the presentation to Commission on Aging on the cafe and the options there. The Commission on, is aware of, while it was not the hoped for a true cafe, they were very appreciative of the effort that has been going into this and are pursuing the option that was presented as well as continuing to pursue other options in the future. But I did want to say that they were very happy to hear that there had been at least some progress and look forward to working with the selectmen and this council on continuing the efforts to bring it to its what its potential could be.
Great, thank you, Mr. Mauer. Back to B is Planning and Zoning, Public Works, Park and Recreation. Mr. Foss?
Yeah, so Park and Rec had a lengthy meeting discussing the sponsorship, which I mentioned one before, and I would assume after I added my comments, maybe Mr. Kellogg, because they did mention coming to a town council meeting. So what I have to say is Missy Oroz and Frank Duchess met with Kelly Garvin of BMW Bridgeport to discuss sponsorship for concerts and character dinners. BMW would like to have a car at park events and possibly offer a raffle for test drives. I know somebody who might do that. Discuss possible levels of sponsorship. They'd have a $2,500 platinum sponsor, a $1,000 gold sponsor, and a $250 silver sponsor. All levels will receive recognition, with the highest level having the ability to display signage. And the intention of this year would be to send out sponsorship opportunity information through organizations such as the Rotary Club, Chamber of Commerce, to give all businesses in town an equal and fair chance to sponsor events. The goal is to cover the cost of summer concerts, which is $35,000 approximately. It was suggested to start in early fall for 2020 concert sponsorships. And a policy for sponsorship opportunities was previously requested by First Selectman Kellogg. It should include fair sponsorship opportunities to businesses in Monroe and surrounding towns. And John Stone, who's the new chair of Park and Rec, stated the policy needs to be submitted to town council for inclusion on their May 13th meeting agenda if possible. So I'm assuming it wasn't possible.
Right.
Okay, that's really all I have because.
Can I just add
Yes, of
something
course. I
about
was just going to ask if you want to.
There was a lot of discussion. Did you get nothing, Mr. Kellogg, about their policy on signage?
I received something Friday afternoon, I believe.
Okay. Something that still needs some work?
I've
Haven't.
not had sufficient time to review the proposal to be able to bring it
Okay.
to council.
Because that was a big concern of them, just their timing, because they're way far behind on doing something for this year. But they were really interested in making sure that they did it right and,
I've told the commission that obviously the policy needs to come to council ultimately for approval.
right.
So we're ready to present it presumably at the next meeting, assuming everything is, I would presume they're fairly close to a final
Right.
product if they're saying to me, so.
Well, that's good. And I just wanted to add, June 3rd, their, what Park and Rec calls their summer meeting is, they do a tour. And I would think anybody, if they wanted to, could come. They literally take the carts and they go around to the different fields and stuff, talk about the facilities and stuff. It's an interesting meeting. And then they will meet for that meeting back at the senior center because it's right there to finish up their meeting. But
And they
it's
always have
interesting.
pizza.
It's
They
true.
always
yes.
have pizza,
They do
yeah.
have pizza. That's a good point.
Absolutely.
Put that in.
And that's all I
I
had.
might
To
have been, I
report.
might have had something to do with that.
And that's all I had to report on the.
That was an interesting subcommittee report. Let's not make that a habit, but anybody else like it? No? Okay. Moving on to L&A, Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We did meet tonight, and we will be going over the points in new business.
Strategic planning has not met. EMS, anything, Mr. Rooney?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the EMS committee did meet. We made a selection, or actually a recommendation for our CM at risk, which that name has been forwarded to the First Selectman's office, awaiting contracts and things of that nature, and then from there we'll come to council. So that's where we are. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And the First Selectman's update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So a few updates. First, I wanted to highlight for this council an update on the proposed shifting of the state teacher retirement system costs onto towns. There appears to be significant indications from Hartford that this concept is now firmly back on the table and will appear in a final bill before the General Assembly. I wanted the council to be aware that I have been working with my colleagues at MetroCog, the Council of Government, which includes us and 5 neighboring communities, Monroe, not just Monroe, Trumbull, Easton, Fairfield, Bridgeport, Stratford. We have sent a unified message to the legislative delegation opposing this concept. Furthermore, I've been collaborating with Superintendent of Schools Jack Zamri, and I'm crafting a separate message strictly on behalf of Monroe, which we'll also send to Governor and our legislators tomorrow to make it clear that we oppose this shift in costs. An update on the Wilton Cafe, as Councilmember Mauer alluded to earlier, we have been working towards various solutions there. Obviously, the hope for a long-term solution of an operator at the senior center for that does not appear imminent. So what we have done is identified a solution using a local vendor, Jenny's here in Monroe, that we'll be providing breakfast and lunch options to all the members of the senior center on a pre-ordered, prepaid basis that will be delivered to the center. So that will commence in early June. On the State Bridge Project, Route 25, just so that I previously said that the final weekend detour would likely occur in May. That is not going to happen due to the ongoing weather issues. They are behind that schedule. We are expecting an update later this month for the new date. And I did follow up with our Economic Development Commission at their last meeting regarding doing a future presentation to the council, which they are welcome. They are more than happy to do so. We'll work with them on a schedule for that. And just in regards to, wanted to speak to the comments regarding Parks and Rec, and what we've been, one of the things I've been trying to ensure that we're very deliberate and discern is the concept between advertising, sponsorships, and commemorative plaques or other insignia. I think that there's been some lack of clarity on that. The Parks and Rec Commission has a current rule that allows for commemorative plaques, things of that nature. I mean, we all know the Rotary Pavilion has a clear plaque on it, and we have park benches with plaques and things like that. So I don't think there's any concern regarding that going forward as relates to that. I know there's some projects at the park where we want to pursue that, and I think we can certainly look to elaborate or clarify that in a future policy, but I don't think anything should impede those types of honorary things to continue. What I think we have to be, what I've asked them to be, really deliberate on is relative to the advertising piece, strictly to make sure that it's appropriate for a town park, and also so that there's equal opportunity for any business to be able to provide that kind of a sponsorship. So I am encouraged that they've finalized something, and we look forward to being able to bring it to council.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. We have no unfinished business this evening. New business, item A is the resolution regarding the Small Cities Program Modification Agreement. Mr. Powell?
I will introduce the resolution regarding the Small Cities Program Modifications Agreement, and move for its adoption. Resolved that Kenneth M. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Monroe the standard modification agreement as necessary for projects in the Small Cities Grant Program.
Motion by Ms. Lopellis by way of resolution. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Martin. For discussion, I'll turn the floor over to you, Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So many of you will recall this program being approved by this council back in 2017. This is a program that offers zero-interest loans under the very strict federal HUD guidelines for certain projects relative to the project itself has to qualify under certain categories, and the recipients, the homeowners, have to qualify as well in terms of various needs-based assessment criteria. We have a contract in place with Lisa Loan Associates for managing this program. One of the things they do is to memorialize the loan on the land records relative to a no mortgage agreement, etc. That's part of the original package that this council reviewed when approving the program. What's come to my attention is that there are times that, subsequent to that being filed through a change order process in the project, it's determined that the loan amount needs to change to meet a new scope. Obviously, the scope change has to be vetted to ensure that it still qualifies under the program. but presuming that it does, the updated amount has to be recorded. That is done through a modification agreement. I've asked for the template of that agreement to be provided, which is in your package. What I'm asking is this council to approve this form of the agreement so that in those cases when we have a specific property owner who we need to make this change for, I can simply execute those modification agreements. And it has been reviewed by our town attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Any further discussion? LNA did act unanimously to have council consider this particular item. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And against, motion carries 9-0. Item B, regarding Wolf Park, we do not have an agreement. I just want to apprise everybody that Mr. Kellogg has asked that he said that he's encouraged that this can get done and be in an agreement format that allows the concessions to begin sooner than our next meeting. And so in that regard, I will consider having a special meeting for that purpose. So just be on the lookout for an email from me, just looking for everybody's availability to accomplish that. And I guess I might as well mention that if the Park and Rec policy is ready at the same time, or we can coordinate it, I'm happy to piggyback that at the same time.
Sounds good.
So moving on to item C, resolution regarding the cash management services, master agreement associated with Newtown Savings Bank. Mr. House.
I will introduce the following resolution regarding the addendum to Cash Management Services Master Agreement for Positive Pay Services with Newtown Savings Bank, and move for its adoption. Resolved that Kenneth N. Kellogg, First Selectman of the Town of Monroe, is authorized to execute and deliver on behalf of the Town of Monroe the addendum to the Cash Management Services Master Agreement and any associated documents by and between Newtown Savings Bank for their positive pay services.
Motion by resolution by Ms. LaPels. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Rooney. Mr. Kellogg.
Thank you. So, working with with Newtown Savings Bank, which, as you know, will be the bulk of our banking relationship, they have offered a new service to us. Well, it's actually not new for them, but it's something that we would add to our kind of palette of services. It is called Positive Pay. Essentially, it's an additional layer of security that allows us to send a file of each and every check run so that when checks are presented in town, they can be positively matched to that file to ensure that there are no fraudulent transactions being attempted. There's no cost to us to utilize the service, and our town attorney has reviewed and provided his opinion.
Thank you, Mr.
And,
Kellogg.
I'm sorry, and I will say that, thanks to our finance director who was here earlier in LNA, he has had all staff meet with Newtown Savings Bank to go through the logistics of the process, and he's very comfortable that it can be done without any additional burden to staff.
Thank you, Mr. Kellogg. Ms. Martin.
Can I ask Mr. Hayden a question, please?
Sure.
In your opinion letter, it says that you asked for removal of certain phrasing, and Newtown Savings declined.
Yes, ma'am.
To do that.
Yes.
What exactly was that about?
There's a provision, it's paragraph 6 in the addendum, where Newtown Savings Bank waives or insists that we waive and release them from any liability except for their gross negligence. Customarily, I'd like to reduce that, to change that to negligence, because gross negligence is, for other reasons, it's a very hard burden to establish. Basically, we're waiving all liability. And their response was no, it's not in their policy to agree to something like that. So I just wanted to make sure the council was aware of that.
I appreciate that. Is the term gross negligence typical in a contract like that?
No, I would say negligence is more likely. Companies and entities try to include gross negligence or intentional conduct, but more likely than not, it's negotiated down to negligence.
Okay. All right, I was curious about that. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good question, thank you.
LNA did approve it 3-0, and I do want to thank Mr. Banowski for attending and He did ask if attendance was required, and I told him that I did not think it was, so I hope I'm not mistaken, but any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Just as a note, the section we were discussing is actually section 8A, not paragraph 6, it's paragraph 8A, just for the sake of the record, if anybody does go back to look at it.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And against, motion carries 9-0. Our last item for the evening is item D, which is the donation from the Lions Club to EMS for the G3 stat packs. Ms. LaPellis?
I have it here. Okay. I move to accept the donation for the emergency medical services, a donation of G3 stat packs in the amount of $2,100 from a local organization, which is the EMS services.
No, that's the Lions Club.
Oh, thank you.
Motion by Mr. Pellis, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Mauer. Any discussion regarding this donation? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Motion carries 9-0. That concludes our business for this evening. We have second public participation. There is a ripe item for discussion. Mr. Kirsch? No? All right. I would close second public participation. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Pellis, second by Mr. Mauer. All those in favor? Motion carries 9-0.
I dropped my phone into the